Hi, welcome to Art of Academia, a weekly podcast featuring interviews with leading scientists and insider takes on life in academia, hosted by Komal and Madan, researchers from Cancer Science Institute, Singapore.
Because I wanted to do something else first, but it just felt too contrived.
What was it?
I wanted to do basically revisiting the Breaking Smart episode, not like revisiting, but like almost a follow-up episode to that, because I feel like since then I have taken some of those elements more seriously. Like I've been using it, and it feels useful. It wasn't entirely that, but I think it's not fully fleshed out, and it probably needs some time.
Okay.
So I thought we'll do this instead, and this
Yeah.
also felt like less abstract, conceptual, and more practical, which
Yeah,
people
more
might
useful
like
for
once in a
people.
while.
The ritual sex episode is getting viral, huh?
Is it? It has the most views, is it?
Yeah, like 25
No.
or something.
Maybe then sometimes pretentious titles work
Right, yeah.
instead of habits or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I don't know if that was part of it, but
Cool.
okay. But we start with we should do an intro. No, I guess we have an intro.
What do you mean?
Like I don't know.
Hey, what's up? That
yeah,
time.
something like that. Maybe let's see.
we can bring that in because normally all our episodes just start.
Just start. It's just
Which
just
is
nice
also
in a
fun.
way. Yeah, which is nice in a way because you're like directly in the conversation already.
Yeah. What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, weekend we went for Cthulhu. I don't know how to pronounce it now.
Cthulhu.
Cthulhu.
I
What was
think,
it? Adventures of Cthulhu?
No.
Something of Cthulhu.
Wait. Call of Cthulhu.
Call of Cthulhu. Okay, so we wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Which I still want to play.
Yeah, maybe we should still try. But
Without paying the $40 though.
Yeah, that's expensive. But somehow it was booked out or something. So we decided to do this instead, which apparently is a very similar game.
More
Maybe
horror
not.
horror themed.
Yeah, this was Halloween themed, where I guess for people who don't know, you have a is it a dungeon master when there's no dungeon? Basically, okay, game master. Let's call him, where they will make up certain scenarios, and as players you have to pick a character who have certain strengths and capabilities, and I guess some weaknesses as well. And then the dungeon master will sort of tailor the situation, give you some challenges, put you in like scenarios where you have to use your abilities,
Yeah.
and I guess make it out.
I was just blown away with my guy.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much of it was really spontaneous, that things he was just coming up with, and how much was there somewhat laid out, and then he was just building around it.
Yeah.
Whichever way, he was amazing.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, right? They probably do some because they did it in a way that they split us into different groups. So it couldn't be completely random because they planned it in such a way that it all comes together in the end, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, my guy, our master, game master, he was pretty, I feel like, accommodating because we were like straying from the script a lot.
Yeah.
There was barely any horror because both
Yeah.
me and Alexia were not super into it. So it was fully like adventure, exploring your,
Yeah.
I don't know, some weird thing. Like at
Yeah.
some point we did some LSD, we were talking to the Cthulhu thing, I guess a different
What is
monster.
Cthulhu? I don't even know. What is it?
I don't know.
Is it a monster?
Yeah, it's a monster. I don't know either, but it's referenced a lot in games. So one of the games I play, I see it often. It's like a weird, lots of tentacles.
Okay.
Big, mysterious
I see.
kind of a situation.
Yeah, my guy just made it so horror. Like, yeah, the expressions he had, the way he just delivered.
I see.
Were amazing. I was so blown away.
All right, so that was fun. Good first experience. I decided to rebuild my own personal website. Previously, I used to host it with WordPress. So that's pretty easy. It's just point and click. They already give you a template. You just fill in the information and it's done. But at the same time, you have to pay for that. But I was on the lowest tier, the cheapest one. And it has a lot of limitations. Like they don't give you a lot of flexibility with what you want to do. If you want to have different types of content, it's not supported. So I just decided, okay, I'm going to rebuild the whole thing from scratch, write my own HTML, CSS. Maybe partly procrastinating on doing real work, but also because I had learned some HTML, CSS for the project. Like I wanted to do some plotting which required it.
Oh.
That was the main reason I learned it.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I mentioned to you. I was telling you that I want to do these visualizations.
Got it. I remember now. Yes.
but now I had learned it, and so I wanted to put it into use. So it was a good, converging of incentives. And my God, that was super fun to do. Like, I sat down, I think I was literally addicted to it for like a good 2-3 days. That's all I did for like 3 days at a stretch. Super rewarding for many reasons. One, I think, is the same stuff we've talked about before in previous episodes, but it has very short feedback loop, right? You have a thing that you want to solve, which is like, okay, I just want to figure out how do I get all my pages on a navigation bar on the site, right? And it's a very defined problem. You can find the answer very easily because people have done this many times. So you go look it up, you find whichever solution you like, you implement it, you push it to GitHub, and then the web page is updated, right? So super rewarding. And there's like many things where they've really fine-tuned this experience of like developing stuff, that it just feels like you're playing a game, actually. A very, very addictive game. So I ended up doing that for quite a bit. The website is mostly done. I'm almost gonna put the finished tab on it.
Cool.
But now we're thinking of doing a website for the podcast, so maybe starting a whole new thing.
Exciting stuff.
Okay, let's get started, I guess. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about doing PhD abroad.
Yeah, I think even masters, right? So basically
Studying abroad.
Yeah, studying abroad. The reason I wanted to talk about this, at least partially, is because two things. One, my sister is in this phase where she's looking to apply. So we've been talking a lot about this, and it just brought up some memories, I guess, for me. But also because one of my friends, he moved to the US for his masters, and we were just talking, and he was like walking me through his experience, right? And just seeing him go through that again, like basically suffering, like learning to cook, have to clean your room, you have like assignments to do. Just watching him struggle also reminded me a bit of the good old days, I guess, because it's been a while, right?
It has been a while.
For me, at least, since I came here, it's been super long.
How long? 6 years?
6 years. I came
That is
in
quite long.
2018.
Amazing, yeah.
So I like really kind of forgot what that whole experience was like. So I just thought we'll do a whole episode on it.
Sure. So you applied in 2018.
Yes.
How did this motivation come about?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was partially a group thing. Like all of my friends were also talking about the same things. So it was kind of, I don't remember exactly when it started, but it was just one of those things that you did by default if you enjoyed your subject. Like it was really two camps. There were people who didn't like what we studied, biotechnology, but I guess more of biology. A bit more nuances, but like broadly two groups. One that didn't like it and wanted to leave the field, and then one that wanted to stay, keep doing the same thing. And of the keep doing the same thing people, I guess the very practical minded, like who wanted to get jobs immediately, and still stay in the field, that's already a narrow portion. They applied for some biotech jobs, and they went. But I think why more people didn't do that is because, at least in India, it's not great, I suppose. The starting salaries are pretty shitty. So it was almost like a default path that you go abroad, you do your masters, and then I guess you get a better job or something, like just better opportunities. So I don't remember exactly when it started, but it was just like, okay, everyone's doing this. Let's do this.
Let's just do it. Yeah.
Kind of
Did you think of a
situation.
PhD at that point as well, or it was just let's do a master and then we will see how things go?
Yeah. So I think I was in the part like of this group who liked biology. I think I was definitely towards the I enjoyed end of things, but not, I guess, also not so clear that I would have directly gone for a PhD. I was still a bit wary of like what it was like, because
right after undergrad, I think one should not do a PhD. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
But I feel like you are a little less equipped.
True. Yeah. I mean, I have thoughts. I was completely in that camp. Maybe we can come back to that in a sec. But yeah, basically, I was curious. I had done some research, at least in the like last 1.5 years of college, but it was very unsatisfactory. Like it was no depth to it, very like scratching the surface kind of a thing. So I think that didn't inspire enough confidence in me that I can do a whole PhD.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So that's why masters. Then applied to.
How come you applied to Singapore?
It was just one of the options. In fact, I think NUS was the only place I applied in Singapore. And in my mind, it was not the main target at that time. I think I was fluctuating a bit between Europe and US. But Singapore was just one of like the things on the side. I did not even take it very seriously. I had just applied. And in fact, me and two other very close friends, we all got into the same University of Copenhagen. I think different programs, but that was like a great thing, right? Like, oh wow, we can all just go together. We like live together.
That's very lucky.
Yeah, so we all we planned it out. Like everything was planned.
Yeah.
We were gonna share a room. Everything, blah blah blah. And I think the NUS thing came very late. By then, I hadn't heard from NUS. But then one day I did, and I got accepted. And I don't know, I think it was just like it was a tough decision because the decision was based purely on the ranking. NUS just seemed like a better university than Copenhagen in terms of ranking. Right? I don't really know how it was.
I don't know how much this ranking thing really matters.
Probably not a whole lot. But back then there was no other metric.
Exactly.
And
you're sitting in this other country and you're just looking at these numbers.
And I was just fixated on that.
Yeah, I get that.
So that was my reason. So then it was a very hard decision to say no, I'm not going to go to Copenhagen and decide to come to NUS.
I see. Cool.
Okay, but what about you?
I was doing a BSMS, Integrated Master's Degree at ISER Pune, Indian Institute of Science Education and Research. Initially, I had no idea about doing research as a career, PhDs and things like that, scientists. These things were not on my mind.
Yeah.
And at that point, I wanted to get into civil services.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa. I did not know that.
I have mentioned this sometime before.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to be a IAS officer or something.
So this helping people thing goes very far behind.
Looks like it.
Damn.
I did not know that either. But yeah, I think at that point I did want to do this, and that was my motivation to get into ISER. Let's go here, do a basic sciences degree, and then I can apply for these exams, and which is a long process in itself.
Right. Oh, because this IA stuff is like a post-grad thing.
Yeah, you have to have a bachelor's. You can't do it directly after your 12th standard. So that was the plan. But I got into this institute, which was very research intense. The faculty is amazing. The research facilities are really good. It's a premier institute in India for research. So I really got exposed to all these opportunities. We had semester projects where you could, as a normal course, you can do a research project which will have like 2-3 credits or something like that. So you do that for a semester. You join a lab, you do that. Next semester you can do this in another lab. So that already exposes you to so many different labs within 2 years' time or something like that. You can do internships. So I did an internship, summer internship in France, which was also quite exciting and exposed me to more research and more the global network in general. And then most seniors do go abroad. So this is sort of
I see, it's a common thing.
It is a common thing. So I think that's how we just got to know all of this. And like we just felt that this is something you could do.
Right.
Maybe in another university, like say just some like state university, maybe that's not a possibility. You can't.
Probably.
You have to really work hard to get into it. But for us, our seniors were doing this just like that. So different people. We have a huge network across the entire globe. US, Europe. I don't know about Australia, even Singapore. So you can just talk to people, and then they can guide you through it. So I started applying, and for me, I also enjoyed my master's project quite a bit. So at that point, I didn't know if I want to do a PhD, but during that master's project, I really enjoyed it, and I thought, okay, let's just continue. And also, being an IS officer, there's a lot of politics involved, which I don't think I could handle.
I see.
So I was just like, I think I was a bit naive.
Yeah.
Maybe I could have, but at that point, I just felt like research seems more exciting.
Seems right.
Anyways, so I applied to mostly Europe. I did not want to go to the US. Firstly, because I think the long duration, 6-7 years, I did not want to spend such a long time. Also expensive to apply because you have to do this, give this GRE exam. All the applications also take some money, and I did not have that money at that point because my parents did not know that I'm applying abroad.
They didn't know?
They didn't know.
Okay.
I was just applying abroad, and then I was like, if I get something, I will let them know.
Oh.
So I did not have the money to
Interesting.
apply to any of the universities.
Did you not tell them because you thought they would say no?
Yeah. So I applied, did that. I got into University of Zurich and UCL and University of Cambridge. And then again, because of the ranking, I
You went
chose
for Cambridge.
Yeah, I think that is the overall story of how I applied and what was the motivation.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, like you were doing that basically secretly. That's quite interesting because I think for a lot of my friends it was the other way around, where like for some of them they kind of didn't want to go through it, but their parents were like forcing them.
Right. I see. But yeah, I did not tell for the longest time, and only when I got accepted, then I told, okay, this has happened.
Okay. I thought you showed up at the door and you're like, guys, I'm leaving.
No, so I told them, and then of course it took them a while to sort of accept, but then it was Cambridge and it was UK, so I thought they will agree to it, that it's such a big opportunity and it's a matter of 3 years, which is almost 4.5 years now. But yeah, of course, we will get into it, how my PhD also took turns, and now I'm in Singapore.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Okay, so that was how we decided to do. And I guess what did you want to talk about next? How was that experience when you first moved there?
Actually getting into.
Okay, so coming to Singapore, like I mentioned, right? There was this big thing of I'm the only one coming here. All my friends are going to Europe or US. That kind of like framed that whole project for me, which was even kind of true academically. Like I don't know if you. Okay, maybe I'm jumping ahead. We'll come to that later. But early days in Singapore, I think this is probably also fairly common, right? But it was quite difficult to make friends in the beginning. I was lucky enough to get some housemates who were quite nice at the time.
Yeah.
But they were nice in the sense that we got along very well, but they were not people. At least they were not the kind of people I was friends with. Like it was of a very different wavelength.
Okay.
And which was true, I think, partly because it was also true professionally, because the lab I joined at that point was a fully Chinese lab. And the professor was the only one who would like kind of insist on speaking in English. But whenever he was not around, everybody just resorts to Chinese.
Yeah.
Sometimes even when you're in the group. So in the beginning, I think me also being fairly, I guess, immature, young me, I never really like corrected that. I just let it go, thinking that's normal. But of course, that affected my ability to like talk to them.
Right.
So it was like a fairly, I guess, isolated period. The first 6 months to 1 year. But things started to change when I made a few friends outside of the lab. So these were Vishal, Juan, Goli. Basically, there were a few students who were part of the student committee at DBS. And yeah, so then I got to know like a whole bunch of other people, and after that things really changed. I think that first 1-ish year before, and since then, my experience, like my whole view of Singapore is very, very different.
I see.
Yeah, so that would be like the biggest theme of like how was your early days coming here. It just felt very lonely in the sense of I don't relate to people here, which was funny because I didn't think of myself as someone who struggles to find friends. Like in school, I've moved around quite a bit when I was younger. Never an issue. So that was it. I don't know if there's anything else that's interesting to say. It was the usual. I guess I will mention this. Growing up, even now, very, very spoiled kid at home. Parents like absolutely spoiled me to the point where no survival skills. Never done anything, never cooked, never cleaned the house, never did the laundry, everything, right? This is cliche Indian boy child, I suppose. So I had to relearn all of that, which was nice. It was difficult, but it was a good experience to go through that. That definitely teaches you a lot. Okay, how was your experience?
Right. Let me think. Oh yeah, I remember the day I reached. I went with like 2 bags and trying to reach the college. So in Cambridge, you have some 30 colleges within the same. So it's a big town, which is the entire university. Sorry, the entire town is the university. So different departments, different colleges are just spread across. I reached. It was around 7 p.m. or something. 6 p.m. I think. I reached my room. I went out to eat. Nothing is open.
Oh, too late, is it?
Too late. 6 p.m. is too late. It's already quite dark. I think it was October. And I was like, I guess I'm just going to sleep like that. And I had come with such a long flight. I was quite hungry and I was like, okay. I just went back, slept. But then I think they do have a lot of activities within their first week or so. So you get to know people. But again, this was more like you know them, but you're not friends with them. Yeah, so that. And then I think one big thing was the weather, which we have discussed sometime recently as well. Coming from India, which is like super sunny, that to Nagpur, very hot. It gets cold, of course, but that's like 2 months or so. And here things get gloomy, things get really cloudy, it's drizzling, raining all the time. So that's something that you have to get used to as well. So I think I complain now, but while I was doing it, I just got used to it.
I see.
Yeah, it's only in retrospect I feel that I was miserable.
Uh-huh.
But I think when
And
it was
even
happening,
in
I
the
was
midst
not.
of it.
Yeah. At that time, I was like, okay, this is a new thing, and I deal with it.
Yeah.
It is cold. Yes, it is cold,
It's
and
cold,
like
what are you
just
gonna
get
do?
along with it.
Yeah. I think I also overestimate how much I will hate the cold because I've never been in a cold country. Always grew up in a hot place.
Yeah.
And some of my friends who had gone to very cold places, they were like, "Oh, it's not so bad." And but then when they talk to me, it's always like, you're saying it's not bad, but it doesn't sound like it's not. It sounds very bad, but maybe if you live it, you just
really get used to it. I think. I remember my first winter, I felt so cold, like during the peak December Jan time. But the next winter, I myself was like, I feel okay.
Okay.
So I guess when you start spending 2-3 years and like even more for some people there who are like 5-6 years, just get used to it. This is the new norm.
Yeah.
You know it gets cold. Like you know this month it's gonna be this way and things like that.
Fair.
In terms of friends, I got quite lucky. So I met a girl who did an internship in my lab in ICER.
Wow.
Yeah. So she also joined. Apart from her, there was another guy who I met at the University of Zurich interview.
Oh, you guys talked to each other in the interview.
No, it was in person.
Ah, I see.
So we went there.
I see.
And
so
then
there was on-site in India.
No, that was
you
in
went
Zurich.
to Zurich.
Yeah,
Oh, damn, for the interview.
Yeah,
Wow.
they paid for it. That was insane. But yeah, basically there was like 3 days thing. On the last day before like some get together, I was there. I just gave an interview and I was just walking past. I saw him come across me and then we were like Indian. And then we just chatted, exchanged numbers for whatever reason.
Right.
Never saw each other and then realized we are both also going to the same university
place.
for PhD. So I got these two connections somehow randomly and so this was my, I think, close knit circle to start with, and then we sort of expanded. There were quite a lot of people around to mix with. But I do know of my friends who went to some universities, say in Germany, smaller cities where it's really just, it's not a university even, it's a research institute. So there's not a lot of students.
Yeah.
It's mostly like employees, staff, researchers, postdocs. So they really struggled in a new country, and especially with the language barrier, I think.
Right.
At least with English, you get by, even if it's not.
Yeah. Thing about, I guess that was the nice thing about Singapore, is that there are actually a lot of different ethnicities here. So you do get exposure. So even though like some environments, like my lab was very, Chinese, and they wouldn't interact and stuff. In general, I feel like there are many people, like many different kinds of people here, and you can like learn from everyone.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, we are already sort of getting into the benefits or sort of the advantages of doing a PhD abroad. One is just getting this international exposure to people. So even there, I had friends from so many different countries, US, UK, Europe, Australia, and then you just get to learn so much. Instead of going online or like reading up, they just tell you experiences and then they just tell you stories, and that's quite cool to make that global network.
Yeah. Okay, what else?
You can get into, do you want to get into the research, doing a PhD abroad?
Of course, the main thing is there's more funding outside,
that's the
Just
biggest
more,
one.
more money
Absolutely.
outside. Definitely, I don't think India is lacking in terms of talent or skill. It is the money, which makes a big difference. Then, I mean, I remember like one of and the first time you experience this, it's quite stark, right? In my college, at least SRM, the funding was like almost non-existent. We were doing absolutely ridiculous things like washing the tips and reusing them.
Washing?
Like rinsing them with and a tap
This
water.
I've never heard.
Because it
Like,
was ridiculous.
I know, like filling and autoclaving and stuff. But
no, that is totally
washing-
fine. Yeah, and then we were using those tips for qPCR.
Damn, dude.
Like the audacity even. And then
That's
we complained
insane.
that
Things are
there's
not
no
working.
result. Yeah, like how would it work?
There's detergent in it.
Yeah. So
Damn.
coming from that background, like DBS, which is not that rich, which is where I did my masters, it was already shocking. Like, you just buy everything, you barely reuse anything, and then when you find out the price of things, that blows your mind as well.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a big thing, like you should. I think if you want to do research,
Yeah.
I don't know how advisable it is to stay in India.
Even the salaries and stipends.
Yeah.
Some students don't get stipends from, I don't know, is it whatever the government body that dispenses stipends for years, for like months and years. Then how are you going to focus on your research when you don't have money to eat food?
Yeah, actually the stipend is a good point too, and that's probably like at least used to be one of Singapore's strengths, where the PhD programs, they pay you decently well.
Are trying to
Yeah, I mean
hike up.
we can put numbers to this. So CSI, where I am doing my PhD and you were here for a while, that pays $3,000 for international students a month, Singapore dollars, which is pretty good. I think that's quite competitive on a global scale.
It is, yeah.
And the nice thing about Singapore, at least so far as I know, most programs here comes with a guaranteed scholarship, which is not the case in a lot of places, right? You can apply even for a PhD, but then you kind of have to secure your own funding.
Yeah.
Which I think is maybe fine. You can still do it, but I like the fact that this comes as a package and you don't have to worry about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the US, sometimes, like you say, there won't be a tuition fee, so you don't have to pay stuff.
Yeah.
But then you
So,
have to
like
sort of
just maintenance
apply.
and survival. People do TA ships and stuff, like
Yeah.
teaching duties.
And then I think there also, in many cases, the money comes from your supervisor. So you're kind of under their mercy. Like if they have grants, you get money. If they run out of grants, you might not get money. It felt a bit unstable.
That's true.
Whereas
yeah, in that
here
case, if you
it's-
have some central
Exactly.
organization, that's definitely much more stable.
Yeah, so in Singapore, at least where I am in CSI, even for some others, it comes from the department.
Yeah.
Which has another nice added benefit that a lot of people don't realize. If your PI is paying you, I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but in the US where the PI is paying you, you're basically very cheap labor. And then the incentive is that they want to keep you on for longer because they can get more work done
Yeah.
without paying an actual staff
Yeah.
who they would have to pay much more.
Right.
But here, because the department is paying you, and the department doesn't really care how long you stay. In fact, they don't want you to stay too long so that you're not like keep sucking the funds. So there's a hard limit on
Yeah.
the program.
Yeah.
So 4 years, you're encouraged to finish
Yeah.
and fuck off,
Right.
which is good
Which is
in
good,
many
absolutely.
ways. Yeah.
I mean, in India, in US, PhDs can drag on for
Exactly.
10 years almost.
Yeah.
Like I know people who took 10 years.
Yeah,
That's
this is
insane. That's a decade of your
crazy.
life.
Yeah, that's one huge downside. I don't know if it really does play out like that for a lot of US colleges, but I've heard many cases where there is no like definitive end. You can keep going. Okay, so you went for your PhD. You went to Cambridge. Why are you in Singapore now?
Man, that's a long story. So I started in 2019, October, and then in November, my PI tells me that he might move to Singapore because he has a really good job position there and he may take that offer.
Yep.
I was like, well, okay. And then he assured me that for at least for 1 year he will be here, won't be leaving. So in that, I mean, I was very new. I was getting used to the country. I was getting used to people, research. I was excited. New PhD student. I want to at that time I was just like writing proposals and stuff. So I'm like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I had that high motivation. Okay, 1 year I'm going to become independent. I'm going to learn everything. And then the next 2 years I can just do it by myself. And then I think March 2020, COVID hit. So first bomb was him leaving. Second bomb was COVID. Everybody's just home. So of course research got hit quite a bit. And then he eventually moved, I think in 2020 end. I was still there. So initially the idea was I would stick around. There will be people to help me. So I will have people, some mentors. Some of my postdoc mentors were quite nice. But then he said that no lab in Cambridge. So people just started leaving. And after that, 2021, my department got shut.
Yeah, bro.
I
You're
cannot
like some
believe this
ultimate
story,
jinx.
man. I cannot believe this story. That was another horror story. Like, every lab is now leaving. It's not just like my
Your
lab
lab.
is leaving, these people are leaving. farewells after farewells. I don't know how many I have done.
Yeah.
But really, all equipment started shutting down. This lab is going to Germany. That lab is I don't know going where. People started getting lesser and lesser, and you have to have a good environment, right, for your research.
Yeah.
You need people to talk to, and then for a long time, my postdoc mentor Diren was there with me. So we were like just sort of two people doing our things, but then eventually he did leave as well. So at that point, it was really just me. I was the last member standing from our lab. And I was just doing my thing.
Yeah. I'm imagining what that's like. I can't imagine.
It's insane. I mean, I'm just like recollecting that time now. I'm looking at my bench. It was just me. And then there was another lady, Mona, who was initially part of Ashok's lab, but then she got an independent position. So she was there. So the entire space, like if you imagine our benches, I'm on one bench, she's on one bench, and then she got one or two staffs later. So that was it. And I don't know, I was doing things. It's quite insane to think about that now. But eventually, I had to make the decision. I could either stay along and join some other lab within Cambridge, and then finish my PhD there, or I could choose to move to Singapore into my professor's new lab. Contemplated with this for a long time because again, so many pros and cons. Again, moving a country, moving continents. It will impact your research. It will impact. You have to go and set up everything again. The lab here itself was also getting newly built, so things will take time to set up. Like people were having troubles doing a Western blot. That's your bread and butter. And then if you're struggling with the techniques, how will you get results for your PhD? But the cons with joining another lab within Cambridge was that this new PI may or may not, give you attention because they do something else and now you're on a corner doing your own thing. So eventually, after a lot of discussion and thinking and that, I decided that I will move to Singapore. And then in December, when did I come? 2022, April, I moved. But I think now I definitely think I made a good decision because in terms of the lab, in terms of the research that I did, the people I met, the culture I got to experience, the food I got to experience, all those things within like one PhD, I got to experience two completely different countries.
Yeah.
So which is something not everybody gets to do. So I think I got lucky in a way, even though it was stressful at points. So yeah, that's how I'm in Singapore. Finished my PhD, and now I'm doing a research fellow. I'm a research fellow right now, trying to finish up stuff. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I was just thinking how different Singapore feels from the UK. Like I know at least research-wise, although I haven't experienced other countries, Singapore feels isolated. Like I was alluding to this before, in terms of like being connected to the research network, if you will. The main stuff is happening out there in the US and a decent amount in Europe, and there is a good amount of crosstalk between those two. But this side of the world is kind of like secluded.
Yeah.
Like although Singapore is constantly trying to be a part of it, it's much harder. Like I guess it is harder to like get people to fly all over, all the way across the world.
Yeah.
Even like for conferences, it can be expensive to fly them in. So for those reasons, I guess just geographically isolated. We are better connected with like the Southeast Asian part, like China. Turns out Korea has a lot of research happenings, many conferences there. But yeah, I think it does feel a bit, left out in a way from the main scene.
Right.
And you do feel that, like when you go for conferences, you don't see a lot of people from these,
That's
US
true.
or Europe
Absolutely.
universities coming over.
Yeah.
But how and you were alluding to this a bit in a previous conversation. But even for example, antibodies and stuff.
Yeah.
If you need to order something, all the manufacturers who are like doing this are based either in Europe or US. A big chunk of
it's
it.
It's a big aspect of your research.
Yeah, and so things just take forever to arrive.
Yeah.
As opposed to you were telling me in UK, it arrives in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, here you have to wait like a good 4 weeks.
Few weeks.
I'm thinking if I had to do like a short bullet list of why come to Singapore for research. Sorry. Number one is money, I suppose, compared to, I guess, a lot of other
Yeah,
places.
I mean, given the size of this country, they are really
spending a lot of money.
a huge chunk of their GDP.
Don't come here for the beaches. It's an island, but you will be very, very misled if you think the beaches are nice. They are not nice. But I guess
No, but then Also, this is a hub for really traveling most of Southeast Asia.
True.
You can go anywhere.
Yep.
This is the place where every flight goes to.
Yep. And Southeast Asia has very nice beach.
Southeast Asia has so much to offer.
Oh, well, I have one. Because my sister, for example, she seems not so keen. Like, she's a bit doubtful about whether or not she should do one. Because I think on some level, recognizing that it's a good opportunity, you will get, better options later on. But at the same time, not wanting to like give up the current life you have, right? Your friends, the things you have set up. Like she's moved out now. She has her own place.
Yeah.
So I think she's quite attached to it. She doesn't want to leave. So what would you say to a person like that, like who is considering it, but they also are not like fully convinced because, they like their current situation?
Right. I mean, I would actually, when I started my PhD and like even like maybe a few months ago, I was in this position that, next I'm going to go to a new country and then like, get some new opportunities, do new things, whatever. But now I also am in this phase where I want to go back home for different reasons. But for your sister at least, or like students who are in that position, it's a matter of a few years. And the amount of things you would learn, the amount of people you will be meeting, the network you will make is something that you should definitely work for and try for. Like, it is like it will teach you so many things. And it's a matter of a few years. You may like it, you may not like it. If you don't like it, the worst is you go back home. But at least you tried.
True. I think that's a good way to think about it. Like I'm thinking now also, somehow it feels different. When I was in undergrad, there was no question of me staying back. I think partly because maybe most of my friends were also leaving, so there was never a concern. But if I think about it now, I'm not so keen on moving, at least. I mean, okay, fair enough. The way it's structured for me also is that the plan is to stay for a bit, but I'm not very excited about moving. I would like to stay here, which is quite interesting, right? Like, I guess sometimes because in my head, you kind of have to balance. Like, you have to see what you're getting out of it.
Yeah. But also, like, while you are here or your sister is there in India, she can only see the things that are good right now. She does not know what's there on the other side. So you really have to experience it. And even for me, when I moved to Singapore, I had no idea what is there, to see, to do, to meet, to like experience. It's only when you come and you do all these things, you are like, after 1 year's time, I'm like, I definitely enjoyed so much. I learned so much and I would not change that.
Yeah, and there's a funny phenomena, people have probably noticed this. When you first move, your quality of life is probably going to dip, right? It's going to be worse off than how it was when you were like back home, nice, comfortable eating, nice food. But almost everybody I know, if you ask them, how do you feel about the decision? I think most people are like, it's an overwhelming yes, as in it was a good choice. I wonder why. I don't know if this is on some level some sunk cost. Like you put in all this effort, so you're like convinced to like always say like no, this was a good thing.
I see.
Or is it really? I mean, clearly there are benefits, right?
Yeah.
There are good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a hard argument to make. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. But pretty much everybody I know, nobody has said that they regret it.
Yeah, I mean, you have put in so much, you have invested so much, and then just saying like, I made the stupidest decision of my life.
Take some balls to say that, I guess, to even like accept that to yourself.
Right. That's true.